keeping my fingers crossed, Adam, because this might be the very first time I'm using StreamYard to go live on Instagram. It said it was happening. I've got my phone. I'm kind of watching it in the background here, but we'll see, Adam. But Adam, how are you doing today?
I am great, Brenda. I'm very excited for the potential maiden voyage on Instagram Live via StreamYard. This is great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being my guinea pig for the first potential Instagram. I'm glad that I'm working with you on this one, but I'm super excited and I want to welcome our audience. For those of you, if you are watching this live, wherever you're watching it, you might be watching it live on LinkedIn. You might be following us on YouTube, or maybe you're seeing us on Instagram, where hopefully the live stream is working and like, but wherever you're following us from, please drop a comment and let us know. You could just say hi from Metro Detroit or hi from California, wherever you're at. The comments let us know that the live stream is picking up and the show is actually happening, so to speak. All right, so now I'm seeing a little error message inside StreamYard, Adam, that's saying we're having trouble streaming to Instagram. If you ended it on Instagram, this is expected. If not, and this continues, try creating a new Instagram stream. I have no idea what that means, other than I think they're saying delete it out and take it back in again. So I don't think it's going to be on Insta,
Darn
unfortunately.
it. We tried
Darn
though.
it. We'll try. All right. So I'm gonna try to reload it though, maybe while I'm asking you to talk about yourself, Adam, because maybe I can hit the ketchup bottle and we can get it to come back up again. But
Yes.
at any rate, I'm here today with Adam Schaeuble, who I started following a while back, probably about a year ago, when I started making it a real thing that I was going to launch my podcast. And I call my show enthusiastically self-employed, and I've got a subheading because of Adam's great advice on there. And I feel like I discovered podcasting business school. I feel like somebody probably steered me towards you. I can't remember who it was exactly, but I'm now enrolled in your Download Growth Club program, as well as following all of your great advice, including listening to your podcast. So I know a little bit about you, Adam. Why don't you take a few minutes and tell our audience about you?
Yes, indeed, Brenda. So my name is Adam Schaeuble, like Brenda said, and I started my podcasting journey back in the early days of 2015, way back. And I came from the brick and mortar business health world. I owned a fitness center and was able to produce really great results with my hometown clients. And I wanted to kind of expand my brand into the online space. And I was a fan of podcasts. So I launched my first show called The £1,000,000 Mission back in 2015. And to kind of hit the fast forward button, it took me 3 years to make any money with my show. I made $37 in 3 years. So I was really, about 10, a little over 10 a year, 10, $12 a year, not really bringing home any money to pay the bills. But from year 3 to year 5, I really figured out how to be an online entrepreneur. Kind of all, I call it self-taught, but I invested in courses, I learned from people. But I had a very long 5-year journey where I started to eventually see success. I started growing my online brand. I started growing my downloads to the point where I ended up selling my podcast, selling that whole health brand. And I launched Podcasting Business School with a goal of helping all these new podcasters that are, they are service providers or online coaches or online consultants that want to leverage a podcast to grow their brand and grow their business. I launched Podcasting Business School with the goal of helping those types of people fast forward through that 5 years of pain that I experienced, where now I'm a full-time podcaster. I've been full-time since the end of 2019. I've got a 3-day work week, and I am able to pay myself more than I ever was as a gym owner. And I've got one VA instead of 35 employees, and life is good.
That's awesome. And I didn't know that you sold your original podcast. I think I stumbled upon the name someplace and I emailed you and I'm like, what is this? And you're like, oh, that's my old podcast. I didn't know that you sold it. I only know you as, it's funny because I only know you as Podcasting Business School. I didn't know that the gym, I knew the backstory that you're talking about that, but what an amazing journey. And thank you for sharing, because gosh, if you guys are watching, you're going to see the topic right above us. It's podcasting tips. And Adam's been there, done that, and he's now teaching those of the rest of us on how to get it done as well. So let's jump right in, Adam. And I know you've got so many great pieces of advice for people on podcasting tips. So where should we start here? What advice do you have for us?
Okay. So when I look at podcasting tips as a general topic, I like to kind of chunk it up into launch, growth, and monetization, and kind of in that order. So I know there's a lot of people we're recording this at the end of the year here, and at the end of the year, at the beginning of a new year, a lot of people are thinking about launching a new show.
Okay.
And there are some definite things that I can help out with there, with general tips that will help you avoid mistakes that I have made, that I see a lot of podcasters still making out there. So, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is with the name of their show, the name and the art. Let's start
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
And I am not like, most of my tips come from me making the mistake first and learning how to reverse engineer it. Just
Right?
all
Like,
cards on the
we
table.
call them learning experiences, not mistakes. Like, here's the learning experience, and here's how I was able to help you, right?
Precisely. I've had many learning experiences in my journey. So the naming mistake that most people make, the naming learning experience that most people make, is
Okay.
that they will name it that's something that's in line with their brand, or something like the same name as their website. Like, I already got the URL, I've already got the Instagram handle. This will also be the
Yeah.
podcast name. And podcast searchability and organic growth is something that so few new podcasters know exists and or take advantage of. And it's a giant just hole in the growth mechanism that they're missing out on. Where, like, if you name your show properly, you will see organic growth. So I've
Yeah.
got uh,
Okay.
a little checklist when you're naming your show.
Mhm.
First thing, when I read it, I want to know what it's about without any
Yep.
further explanation.
Yeah,
Second check,
because you're not gonna be there when I'm going through my podcast app looking at the titles. You're not gonna be there going, "Well, this is about X, Y, and Z."
exactly.
And, even like I know you talk about the cover art and different items in the process as well. And it's funny, Adam, I told you this in the pre-show, but I announced to my network that I was doing this discussion with you. And one of my friends was like, "Oh, this is perfect timing because I'm thinking about doing a podcast." And she's like, "I don't even know like where to start the process." But you've gone through the process yourself, from ground up, getting the process started, and you're also training and coaching people with that. So that's I mean, part of the journey that you're teaching others is the journey you've been on yourself. And like you
Correct.
said, making some mistakes and figuring out along the way, right?
Correct. So,
Yeah.
I mean, having that first step down alone, you're ahead of the game. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people will be like, my show is called The Awesome Adam Show, or, hustle, or, they're like these random words like the excited business or something like that. It's very random.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we get
It means
cute.
something to them, but not to you as the
Yes.
potential listener, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so, what to kind of drive this first point home is, we're all creative people. We're creators. We're content creators. So this can be tough. But with the name of your show, I want it to be very strategic and kind of vanilla. And I want
Yeah.
all of your creativity to pour into the episodes, into the content. That's when you open the creativity faucet, is in the content, not in a creative, artsy title that is an inside joke to you that no one else gets. All right. Because then no one
Right.
will see your show. And
Mhm.
that's how this works. We need the right listener to find your show. So, first checkbox, what is your show about?
Mhm.
The second checkbox in my naming strategy is, who is it for? So when I read the title, I want to know what it's about and who it's for. So the Awesome Adam Show, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
The word the Hustle Podcast, no idea. Uh,
Right.
so I want to know what it's about. I want to know who it's for. So I need some identifying terms that your ideal listener will say, that is a word that I use to describe me or my journey or my business.
Mhm.
We want to get in their head and get those identifying terms out there. Then the third rule, Adam's third golden rule of podcast naming, is we have to have at least one keyword in there. And by a
Mhm.
keyword, I'm not talking about like Google keywords. I'm talking about, what is one word that your ideal client will put into Apple or Spotify searching for a
Okay.
show like yours. So when you look at the name of my show, Podcasting Business School, I have two keywords in there: podcasting and business. We know what it's about podcasting and business. We know who it's for. It's for podcasters,
Mhm.
online entrepreneurs. Now I have a title extension. So the
So I was gonna
show,
ask, 'cause you got the title and then there's like it's like the subtitle that goes
yes,
underneath it, right?
yeah, and it's long.
Okay.
People are like, "Isn't that too much?" I'm like, "No," because my show is known as Podcasting Business School. I
Right.
introduce it. Hey, it's your buddy Adam from Podcasting Business School, blah, 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 blah. That's all I reference it as. But on Apple, you see Podcasting Business School, tips for online coaches, consultants, and service providers. It's so long, I don't even remember it all. But I'm basically keyword stuffing and identifying term stuffing my title as listed on Apple and Spotify so that people that are like online consultants are like, oh, I see it. I'm wanting to
Right.
learn about podcasting and online business. Boom, that's for me. So this strategy will help most people that I work with double, triple, 10x their downloads in a matter of 4 to 6 weeks. So if you're somebody sitting there getting 87 downloads per episode at the 1 month mark, you're probably going to be closer to 200 just by doing this, maybe more.
Right.
And
That's smart
that's
too.
huge.
Yeah. I want to
So
ask a clarifying point
yeah,
on that too, if I
yeah,
could, because like we have no, like if you're doing a podcast on your own, like you have no way of knowing like what's good, right? And when you're working with somebody like you, like I can come to you and say, "Well, I'm doing an episode a week and I'm getting 25 downloads a week. Is that good?" And
right.
you're gonna help to, I think, understand. Well, how long have you been podcasting? If you've been doing it for a week, yeah, that's pretty good. If you've
Yeah.
been doing this for 5 years, then there might be some opportunity for improvement. Would you agree with that? Anything to add?
Yeah, 100%. And two general goals that I like to put out there for people that are newer, stats that I wish I had known when I started, because a lot of us beat ourselves up in a big way because we hear all these big time famous podcasters that we all follow talking about how many downloads they supposedly get.
Right.
And, spoiler alert, a lot of them are lying. Me having connections with the podcast, people that host these shows, they don't spill the specific beans, but they're like, what they're saying, cut it in half is what they're saying.
Really?
So
Yeah.
we beat ourselves up about the numbers. Here are two numbers
Hmm.
that you can take to the bank. Um, we measure 1 month post release. So basically 30 days. So we release this episode today.
Okay.
We're gonna measure it in 30 days. So 30 days post release, if your episodes consistently do 125 downloads, so not just one episode, but consistently your episodes are hitting that 125 at 30 days, you're in the top 50% of all podcasts. 50, top 50%. You're better than
Wow.
half. Yeah. That's a number that gives people hope because it's very like, oh, I'm doing 62. I'm halfway there.
I'm
Great.
gonna put that on screen. Did I get that right? 30
Yeah.
days post-release, if your episodes are getting 125 plus downloads, not just one, but are they all getting that on a regular basis? You're in the top 50%. So
Yes.
that's good because that's like a line in the sand that we can look at. Okay, where am I at in comparison to that type of a metric?
Yeah. And let's
Yeah.
celebrate that
Hmm.
because I mean, I haven't seen the updated stats for this year, but I think there's something like, people are talking about how many YouTube channels there are, how many blogs there are out there.
Right.
Active podcasts, there are less than 300,000 active podcasts, and active meaning they've released something in the last 90 days and they have more than 10 episodes. More than 10 episodes, something released in the last 90 days. Those are loose active terms. So there's less than 300,000. And there are,
Okay.
7 million YouTube channels or whatever producing regular content. So the first metric is that top 50% metric. Then for people that want to shoot a little bit further than that, the number is 1,000. 1,000 downloads per episode at that 30-day mark will get you in the top 20% of all podcasts.
Okay.
So
That's pretty powerful. Yeah, and
yeah,
I hadn't heard those numbers from you before. And I'll admit for everyone right now, I'm about I think 7 or 8 months into my podcast and I'm nearing like the latest episodes, it's like I finally feel like I'm starting to get some traction and no surprise I just enrolled in your download growth club in the past month
yeah,
and things are accelerating. So draw your correlation if you'd like on that one, but my episodes are nearing, I think I'm getting like 80 downloads and they were getting like 40, 50, 60 and I'm following the techniques and the strategies you're suggesting and they are I'm not doing everything, Adam, I'll admit. December's got me a bit wonky right now. But I do have a post-it note that says podcast scorecard to remind me to look back
there
at
you
your
go.
tips every day. But at any rate, I think that's good to know, like 125 in the first, 30 or so days as a guideline to look at because a lot of us don't know and we're just like, okay, we launched a podcast. And I want to talk about this too because a lot of us launch a podcast like a hobby and I've even heard you talking about this a bit. And this was always the struggle for me. If I do launch a podcast, how does it tie back to my bottom line for my business? And is that one of the taglines that you talk about? Something with a hobby. Can you
Yeah.
tell us more about that?
Yeah. The way I view it is, I want to kind of get people out of the hobby mindset and into the business
Yeah.
mindset where a lot of people, they do get into it as a hobby, like, "Oh, it'd be cool if I could make money," but then all of a sudden they start setting money goals, but they got hobby level effort, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, you
Hmm.
have to align your efforts with your goals. If you're like, "I wanna replace my income and go full time," you can't be putting in hobby level effort. You've gotta put like, I went full time after 5 years, but for 5
Hmm.
years, I had 2 full-time jobs. One was being a
Wow.
podcaster and building my online business, and the other one was running my gym and having 35 employees. I was spending a lot of time, but
Mm.
I saw that end line of like, when I can replace my income, holy cow, I'm not gonna have to work so much. I can only do this one thing. And that's when I went from like to a normal 5 day work week, then do a 4, now do a 3. I've taken 200 days off this year in 2023. That's crazy. And I've made more
Hmm.
money and paid myself more money than I ever have before. And it's just because of the effort that I put in. My tagline is, I want you to love it like a hobby and build it like a business. And that's
That's it.
like right
Yeah.
now, this is fun. Me and Brenda are sitting here having fun. We're creating content together. And when I flip on the microphone, I've got an audience waiting to hear what I have to say, which is special. And it took me a long time to figure out how to build that type of an audience. But I can make money with one email, with one Instagram post, with one call to action on my show.
Hmm.
And that's unique and special. And it's hard to get there, but that's what I teach people how to do. Like, that's what I love teaching people how to do. So every time
Yeah.
I flip on the microphone, I'm doing something like this, I'm creating social media content, I'm putting, a course together, whatever. I love all that. Like, I would do all that. I did do that for a lot of years for free. I was trying to get paid, but I was doing it for free.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I really enjoy it. But now I actually do get paid for it. So I get to build it like a business. And if a lot of people start their podcast because they're just so interested in a certain topic. And so it's
Hmm.
fun for us to talk about this. Like, Brenda's obsessed with LinkedIn. Like, she is like the go-to LinkedIn guru person that I lean into. And I've had her come in and speak to my members and stuff like that. And I know that she can just nerd out nonstop on what she is special at. And I'm the same way. So that's kind of the philosophy I've got with my brand.
Yeah. And I'm going to give my listeners an equivalent. You are to podcasting what I am to LinkedIn. Like, you nerd out on podcasting and you get really into the data and the nuts and bolts and the strategies, but I wanna also commend you, Adam. You do such a great job with community engagement as well, and on your monthly calls, and I know you've got a couple different variations, I'll have you talk about that in a second, but there's a monthly call where anyone can come on and you lead a topic, or rather you lead introductions in the beginning, but then you have everyone going around the room, and I think it's called podcast speed dating, if I'm not mistaken. So tell us
Yeah.
about that monthly call, and if there might be people that are listening that are interested in coming and checking that out. And I know that's different than the Download Growth Club, the membership program that you have. But tell us about the monthly call if you could.
Okay. I will do that. But first, I will tell you why I do that, which I think is even more
Okay.
important.
Yeah.
And so I do a few things for community engagement, obviously engaging our online audience and getting some connection time. That's really important. But one of the most common pain points that online entrepreneurs have when they launch a podcast is that they see growth happening with their show, but not with their business. There's a disconnect of, these people aren't converting over into my programs, products, and services.
Hmm.
So the way that I solve that is called expert positioning. So I have a what I call my two-thirds content rule, where two-thirds of my content, I have to be positioned as the expert. I have to be showing off what I do for when people actually pay me. And the way I do that is with solo episodes and coaching style episodes and these community style episodes. So I do very few interviews, almost none. And that's a big shocker. There's a lot of people like, podcasting. It's don't you just do interviews? No, I hardly do any. I'll do one maybe every 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And so that is why I'm doing these types of episodes. So the
Mm.
community style episode I do once per month. It's called the Pod Pals Zoom Party.
Okay.
Any
Hmm.
listener is invited. You just have to have a podcast. I have rules. You have to either have a podcast or be getting ready to launch a podcast. I don't let like podcasting service providers on there if they don't have a show. So if you like do podcast editing. You can't sneak on there and promote your services. You got to
Good.
like have,
Okay.
you got to have a show, and that's in the sign up
Mhm.
form. Like, and I'm not against like podcast editors and stuff like that, but that's not what that is for. Um, so I will go for, it's supposed to be 45 minutes, but it tends to be an hour.
Mhm.
Just all cards on the table. I will
Yeah.
teach for about 10 or 15 minutes on a topic. Then we'll open up for questions on that topic, like podcast growth, or I'll
Mhm.
talk about different monetization strategies or whatever. And then at the end, we open it up and everybody gets 60 seconds. As Brenda mentioned, it's called podcaster speed dating. And you get to shout out your show. You get to say who you're looking for if you have guests. Uh, if you want to speak on other people's podcasts, what you could be a great guest, what topic, for, and contact information. And
Yeah.
right there in that room, I'll have 15 or 20 podcasters live with me. They're just sitting there doing interview swaps. And then I release these as an episode, and people will email them or contact them directly. And people get booked on 4, 5, 6 podcast interviews by coming to my free thing. And that's like, if any of you have ever invested in a PR service to get booked on
Yeah.
podcasts, that's like $10,000 of value you just got there for like 4 or 5 shows. And it's something, again, that I look back at my journey, my first 3 years, I didn't know any other podcasters. And that really contributed to me driving the struggle bus with my show. So I'm like, I have to connect other podcasters. I want to be a networking hub where we can learn from each other, meet each other, and collaborate and connect. So that's why I do the Pod Pal Zoom parties. And it's great expert positioning for me because people get to hear me teach. It's kind
Mhm.
of social proof. Hey, there are other live human beings listening to this show, and
Right.
they're they're super fans enough they want to come on the show, and they get to hear other people's voices. And then I do my Friday podcast audits. That's another huge expert positioning free
Mhm.
thing. I invite people every Friday, one person, one on one, 30 minutes with me, free of charge. They get to bring a podcasting pain point. I deliver on that for 25 to 30 minutes, and I just get to show off what I do. And those two types of episodes, in addition to my solo episode content,
Mhm.
I've got 433 episodes as of today.
Right. Yeah.
And when people get into my back catalog and binge listen, they're getting a whole lot of Adam expert positioning. And that's why I have a very high conversion rate of people eventually becoming my clients.
Absolutely. And I don't know how long I was listening to you before I'm LinkedIn, that's my bag. So I went on to LinkedIn and I looked you up and I tried to connect with you and I have to kind of confess this story too. So I was
This is
like,
a
I
great
want to give
story.
Adam money. Like I want to pay him. And I'm looking, I'm first, I kind of knew your name, Adam Scheibele, and it's a little bit of a different type of a spelling and it looks different than it sounds. So I wasn't sure even like what your name was because I listened and I hear podcasting business school and I was having a hard time finding it on LinkedIn. Then I got to your profile and we weren't connected yet. And I know LinkedIn isn't the main place where you're spending your time. You've chosen to spend it on Instagram. And I'm somewhat on Instagram, but I'm heavier. So I was like trying to look around your profile, trying to find a way to do business. Like, I want to give you money. And I'm like, where can I give you money and join your programs or sign up for your services? And you inspired me to create a LinkedIn for podcasters checklist. And I think I told you this. And I did a special on your show where I walked through. I'm
Yep.
like, I know if there's more atoms in the world, there's probably others that are having this too, and it's not even like it's not a problem that you've identified. It's like you could be missing out on opportunities if you're on LinkedIn and you're a podcaster. So I don't know if you remember that commercial where they did the peanut butter cups. The guy had the chocolate bar and the peanut butter, the jar, and you got peanut butter in my chocolate. You got chocolate in my peanut butter. Well, I
Yes.
got LinkedIn into your podcasting, and you got pink podcasting into my LinkedIn. So I feel
Yep.
like I'm learning and helping you, you're learning and helping me, and I love the pod pals, the Zoom parties that you do because you get to learn from and you don't just have B2B podcasts, you have, fictional I mean, there's a broad variety of people that
Yeah.
you're pulling from into those shows, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All sorts of podcasters, all pod pals are welcome. And that's one of the cool things. I love going around the horn on those podcaster speed dating. And we'll have like a show about vending machines and another one about video games and, dating and, different religion space podcasts. And just like, it's awesome. I'm just like, wow, the different niche
Yeah.
podcasts out there. It always blows my mind. I'm like, this is so neat. And just, I wanted to show my audience, like, you can start a podcast about anything. And if you position yourself correctly, there's always business opportunities there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit here, Adam, and I want to invite our audience into the conversation.
All right.
And while we're waiting for those comments to come in, I want to say I do the same thing as you. Before, I was just doing a LinkedIn Live, and for years I was saying, probably 2 to 3 years, I was doing LinkedIn Lives. I'm like, eventually I'll convert it to a podcast. Eventually I'll turn. Now all of these shows go into my podcast later. So just like you do with your pod pals and your audits as well, converting them to a podcast, this goes on to a podcast as well. So for those that are watching right now, you might not be on the video because you're watching, but if you drop a comment, I will read your name and your question. So technically, you'll be on the podcast with us by audience view and participation of that. And I'm looking at the comments on LinkedIn because I'm noticing lately with StreamYard and LinkedIn, there's a little bit of a I don't want to say a delay. It's almost like a baton is being dropped or not handed over properly. So I'm seeing some comments that are coming in on LinkedIn that aren't coming into StreamYard. So that's why I'm going onto LinkedIn and I'm buying myself a little time and seeing all those questions that are coming in. But I want to ask a question of you, Adam. So for those of us who've done a lot of on LinkedIn, if we've done a lot of live videos or we have a lot of YouTube videos and things like that, what are your thoughts on converting old content into your podcast? That's a current new podcast right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, first off, shout out to Annette in the comments in LinkedIn. She is posting
I
all
think
sorts of
she's gonna
comments.
sign up with you, like,
She's
soon.
she's doing she's doing Pod Pals in January. I'm excited
Yeah,
to see you, Annette. I'll see you in January.
yeah,
I'll even use my promo voice, Annette, in January. This time it's for real. Okay, so yeah, if you've got just boatloads of content, there are different ways we can approach that.
yeah.
First thing is it proves to me that you should have a podcast. First and
Mhm,
foremost, like if you are a content producer, you're a content machine, you are missing out on leveraging the podcasting platform because it is so, in my humble opinion, in my very biased opinion, it is so much easier than something like YouTube
yeah,
because all the video editing and all of the stuff that goes in. I've got a friend who does very well on YouTube, but he spends 6 hours per video. And I'm like, cool, man. Well, I spent 25 minutes on my last podcast and I'm good to go. And similar business results. So that's the first thing I want to put out there. If you're producing content regularly, then you should definitely consider podcasting. Now,
okay,
what do we do with that content? Let's talk about what I would not do. I would not create a show just of old content. I don't think
okay,
that's like, I feel like there needs to be some sort of timely, I'm in the moment, I'm creating this right here, right now for you. What you could do is I would recommend like a first 10 episode kickoff if you're just getting started of fresh content that's you're recording just for the podcast, because then you can, let's say you do have a YouTube presence or a live streaming presence, you can start saying, hey, and guess what, you need to come and check out my new podcast, and the first 10 episodes are something you've never heard on this channel before. So you give them a reason to go over and get that, because maybe your YouTube subscribers would prefer to listen as a podcast and they would like to do that more. Or people want to listen to your stuff as they walk their dog or while they're driving to work commute, things like that.
mhm,
And YouTube doesn't really lean into that always. Live streaming doesn't always lean into that. So it's a little bit different consumption. So
okay,
I would do the first 10 episodes, fresh content. And then I would start maybe alternating and do 1 week live, fresh content, maybe solo episode, 10, 15 minutes, simple stuff. Next week, greatest hits from the vault or whatever. And
mm,
then,
mhm,
you know, old content and put some of that in there. New
okay,
content, old content. I go on a rotation back and forth because people
mhm,
show up for the effort. Like you show up for them, they show up for you. If you like, there are shows like I've heard some old like Tony Robbins stuff. Whenever you could tell he was like he put up that was content from 1984. Like what are we doing here?
yeah,
Like I can just sense that lack of effort. Like this is kind of a toss away. I mean, people who follow me on YouTube, that's kind of how I treat YouTube. It's just kind of like I throw stuff up there for my live stream. I don't really care to engage with any of you over there.
yeah,
So like I don't get a lot of engagement or growth on YouTube, but my pod pals, my people that show up for my show,
right.
they know that like it is my heart is in that thing. So I would mix some live now and present type of content. And you
I
could
like that,
also,
kinda weaving it back and forth, so you get the new
yeah,
stuff, you get the old stuff, and I've even started doing, where I've got the old stuff and now I'll add like a soundbite from me in the beginning. I'll be like, "Hey, it's Brenda. By the way, this interview is from 2021 with Tanya, and I didn't have the podcast at the time, but I decided to convert it because the content is still relevant as of today.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoy listening to this, and let me know what you think."
Yeah.
So then I
Perfect.
set that up as an intro. So I let them know because I almost don't want to. You're a very authentic person too, Adam, and I don't want people to be misled. They're listening to this live, and then at some point during the interview they're like, yeah, this whole thing, like a pandemic, is just starting to happen. And it's like, what? Just starting to happen? Like, that was 2 years ago,
Yeah.
or 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
So I think adding some of that, do you advise people to do that, to add some commentary when it's an older episode, or do you think it's okay just to slide it in and let people figure it out?
Well, you could even record like a canned intro outro where it's just
Mm,
like, "And hey, here's another greatest hits episode from the vault. And this is content that was previously recorded on our blah 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 live stream. If you want to tune into those live streams, here's where you go." And then
yeah.
it goes like so. It could be that simple. Another thought that I had, I like every once in a while, maybe once or twice per year, doing what I call a workshop week. So instead
Mhm.
of you know doing our, a lot of people do one episode a week. I do two. I do Tuesdays and Fridays. So instead of my regular Tuesday Friday, I'll do Monday through Friday on one topic. So if you had a like a bolus of episodes where you could
Mhm.
all on a similar topic, or there was like a theme, like a through line, you could do a workshop week of greatest hits episodes that you've previously recorded and just kind of make them flow in the right order and go Monday through Friday. It really ramps up downloads. It kind of gets engagement going. If you're going to do that, I always create a lead magnet that goes along with that to like get
Yeah.
bonus content or a checklist or a workbook to go through that. So it builds your email list at the same time. But that's
Mhm.
another way to kind of like dump a bolus of really good uh, older content into your stream there and kind of ramp things up a little bit.
Did you guys hear what Adam just did too? He called, like, older content, he called it information from the vault or the greatest hits. Like, what I love about that, Adam, is as a marketer, I think we always have to think about how do we set information up like marketing on a silver platter. You wanna make it feel like people are getting something exclusive, and why are we repurposing older content? Well, it's because it's from the vault, it's good. It's like gems that we cracked the key open and we brought it out to you, or the
Mm.
greatest hits. It's still information that's relevant to this day. And I think there's something that's really to be said about that approach, Adam. And there are folks that are listening that are thinking about, they're on the fence about doing a podcast. And I want to just give one shout out. I know we talked to about Annette. Thank you so much, Annette, for watching. Linda's too is saying great tips for those of us who are considering moving into podcasts, as well as those that have been doing them for a while. Now, I have to admit, it's a fairly new process for me. And I remember being on the other side of it, Adam, looking at this going, oh my gosh, it's like climbing a mountain. How am I going to
Mm.
launch a podcast? So speak to right now to those people that are on the fence. They're thinking about it. Maybe they have it on their 2024 to-do list to launch a podcast, but maybe like me, it's been on their to-do list for years. What's your advice to them?
Well, with any goal, you have to
Mhm.
tip the scales of the why versus the why nots. Like
Yeah.
I used to talk about this a lot in my health podcast, but like the why behind your show or any goal has to be greater than the sum of all the why nots because all the why nots happen all at once. So you want to launch this show, but your kid's schedule is so busy, but you got this course you got to, or your book you got to
Yeah.
finish first, but you're getting ready for a rebrand, but all those things will
Mhm.
happen. So for me, if you have a goal of making more money, getting more clients,
Mhm.
working less time. Like that's a big part of my brand. Like I want to teach online entrepreneurs how to leverage podcasting to increase by six figures or more their bottom line and
Yeah.
work one less day per week, subtract at least one day off their work week. Like that's very, very possible. So if those are motivating things, if you're like, well, you know, like Brenda, I freaking coach all my kids' teams. I take them to school. I pick them up. I cook all their
Mhm.
meals. I spend an obscene amount of time with my children. My son is my very best friend, 100%. And like, I am there for all the things. And if you aren't doing that because of your career position or whatever, this could be a way out. It's going to take work. Like anything, it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to learn.
Mhm.
One of my goals is to help people shorten the learning curve quite a bit, but you have
Yeah.
to level up that why and go, okay, this is finally the freaking year. And then the first domino that I would kind of flick over here to create momentum. when I help people launch, I have them do this exercise where they create a spreadsheet with 52 cells. There's 52 weeks in a year. I go, okay, I want you to come up with 26 topics that you could speak on solo for at least 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm like, you have 10 minutes, go. And,
Ooh, good.
and okay, 26 topics. And people never have an issue with this. And then I go, I want you to make a list of 26 people that you'd like to talk to about these types of topics.
Mhm.
And boom, list of people, whether I'm like dream list and people you're actually connected with, combo it up. From that list alone, we've got 1 year's worth of content.
Yep.
All right. And this is going to take less than a half an hour for most people to compile this list of 52. And then all we have to figure out is which, the order. And then we hit the record button and we start going. You can't let perfect be the enemy of good when you start your show. I will tell
Mhm.
you right now, please, please, please do not, I repeat, do not go back and listen to episode 1 of Podcasting Business School. It is terrible. It is,
Oh my God, every time I hear you say that, I'm like, I wanna go back to
it is
episode 1 because
awful.
I wanna go look. I'm gonna see if I can find it, and I'll put it in show notes for everyone because I
Okay. And if you want an even worse one, go back and
yeah.
listen to my early episodes of the Million Pound Mission podcast. Okay. I
Is it
know we're
still
up on
at?
time.
You can still find that podcast?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's rebranded as Low Carb Hustle Podcast. You can go listen to it right now.
Okay.
My homie Nate Palmer runs it. So my very first fan, I almost killed. This is a great story to end on. I
Aw.
almost killed my first fan. So the first email I ever got, somebody listened to my show, what goes as follow. The email title is "Love your show, but dot dot dot." And then in the actual email, it says, Adam, I love your show. I've been losing weight. I'm feeling great. But can you adjust the sound level on the sound effect you have at the end of your show? I almost wrecked my car. So, so I had this, it's a weightlifting, it's like it sounded like a barbell hitting the ground, like I'm like mic drop, end of
Yeah.
podcast, but I didn't understand sound levels at all. So I'm kind of cooking along at one level, and then I have this sound effect that's like 10x that sound level, and it sounded like a shotgun going off in this guy's car, and he literally
Oh,
curbed his car and almost hit another car.
that's funny.
So I almost killed my first podcast listener. That was a
Oh
super
my
fan.
gosh, now we gotta go back and look for that show too. So if anybody's listening, if they find it, go ahead and drop it into comments here so we could all
Terrible.
see.
It's terrible.
But all kidding aside, Adam, you do such a great job, and it's hard to imagine that you were ever at a point with podcasting where you weren't absolutely brilliant with everything that you do because you just do such a great job, and you're a down to earth guy. You're very approachable. I like that about you too. I feel like when I first came into your podcast call, I could relate to you right away. So as we start to ramp down our conversation here, I normally will send people say, "Hey, are you open to connecting with people on LinkedIn?" But I want to understand, I want to approach this in the right way because I do know that Adam, you're more active on Instagram than you are on LinkedIn. So we're going to send people to Instagram to follow you instead. And I'm trying to buy some time to find your link that I put into comments, and now I'm having a hard time finding it. But it's Podcasting Business School is the
Yep.
Instagram. So it's Instagram.com/podcasting business and no dot in that one, right?
Correct. Yeah. Podcasting
Okay,
Business
so
School is my
did I get that
handle.
right? Oops, I'm missing a slash mark in there. Let me fix that. This is live, people.
We are live.
This happens like as we're doing this. So Instagram.com/podcasting business school. And your name of your podcast is also Podcasting Business School. As a marketer, I've always appreciated the fact that you're so consistent with your branding. Even his Zoom background, if you're watching this on video right now, has Podcasting Business School. The golden mic follows him around in all of his different items. So, Adam, and remind us too, for people that are interested in working with you, what are the offerings and services that you have?
Yeah, so I can serve people that are looking for podcast launch services, podcast growth services, and podcast monetization. So, launch, growth, monetization. I only have 3 offers, so very simple platform. What I would invite people to do is listen to my show and just see if it's a good vibe. There's a lot of. I just released one today on 5 strategies that'll help you grow your show in 2024. So that's a great one to start with. It's episode 433.
Okay.
Start there. But I would invite you to hop on my website, podcastingbusiness.school, sign up for a discovery chat, and we can talk about working together if that makes sense and the different offers that I've got. But yeah, launch, growth, monetization, that is my obsession. That is my wheelhouse. And I really, really enjoy working with podcasters. And once you're a pod pal like Brenda, you're in there. So you gotta beware. You won't. It's. I'm like Coach Prime. I'm not hard to find. I'll show up and I'll help you out however I can. But no, I really, you know, I had so many struggles my first 5 years as a podcaster. I really don't know why I didn't quit. I thought about it a lot, but not quitting was the best business decision I've ever made in my freaking life. And I'm so grateful that I just stuck with it. Because as an online entrepreneur and as a father and as a husband, like I couldn't imagine another vehicle allowing me to produce the lifestyle that I have today. I'm just really grateful for that.
Well, and I'm grateful for you, and I know so many people are grateful for the work that you're doing too, Adam. So we're glad for all the resources and information that you shared with us today. And I keep seeing some questions coming in, but I promised Adam we would start wrapping it up. So we're going to wrap it up. I'll ask the folks that are messaging me, drop the link into the comments. I'll make sure to message Adam on Instagram to get those additional questions answered. Thank you so much, Adam. And by the way, the Pod Pals call, how can we get into your
Yeah,
ecosystem
yeah.
where we can learn about those?
Yeah, all the freebies are on the my main website, podcastingbusiness.school, podcastingbusiness.school.
Okay.
I've got 3 buttons on that homepage. One of them is free things, the other one is things you can pay me for, and the other one is to listen to my show. So click the
Okay.
free things button, and you'll see the Pod Pals Zoom party link, podcast audits. I've got a great lead magnet freebie called the Podcast Growth Scorecard. I've got some great free tools in there, and that's how you get plugged into all things podcasting business school.
Okay. I'm going to share that on screen real quick and then we're going to wrap this up here. I was trying to pull it up in the background really fast because I want to show you again branding. Consistency and everything that Adam is doing on here. So you can check out the resources he just talked about right on this website, which is podcastingbusiness.school. Let me put that link up on screen for those of you who are reading it. And as we wrap up the conversation here today, Adam, any final comments for us or final thoughts on podcasting tips?
Yes. Um, Whenever I get to share somebody's platform, which I'm grateful to you, Brenda, thank you for sharing your platform with me.
Absolutely.
I have I want to make sure that we're not just creating entertainment. I want you to actually take action on this. So I've got what I call an implementation alarm strategy. So if you all got a lot of ideas from this, which I hope that you did, whether you're watching live or listening to the show, I want you to set your alarm on your phone for 24 hours from right now.
Okay.
And I want you to just knock over one domino. I don't need you to create a podcast in the next 24 hours, but knock over one domino. Maybe you work on that 52 episode list. Maybe you work on a name idea. Maybe you work on a topic idea, but just do something in line with that goal before that alarm goes off. And if you forget about it and that alarm goes off, then just take 5 minutes and do it right when that alarm goes off. And if anything, it'll at least remind you about your buddy Adam 24 hours from now. Why is my alarm going off at
Right.
11:48
What
a.m.?
is that? Oh, yeah, that's right. That Adam guy. That's right. Adam, this has been such a delight. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate your expertise and looking forward to continuing to follow you and come into your podcasts and all that other good stuff. So thank you again.
Thanks, Brenda.
All right, guys. And as you are wrapping up the conversation here today, hey, I want to ask you a question. Did you enjoy the conversation? So, to add on to maybe that domino effect that Adam mentioned, if you're on LinkedIn and you have not yet posted this week, this month, heck, even this year, we're getting towards the end of the year right now. So, we're recording this in December. I want to encourage you to share the video along because you never know who in your network you can help. Maybe there's somebody on the fence who's thinking about launching a podcast or has a podcast who's struggling. And there were so many gems that Adam shared in the episode today. If you do share it on LinkedIn, I want to encourage you to tag myself and Adam. Make sure you use the @ sign when you tag. And Adam and I are both self employed now, enthusiastically self employed, if you will. So we don't get performance reviews anymore. So we'd love to hear from you in comments if you enjoyed the show. That really does help us out. With that said, everyone, this is my last podcast of the year. In 2024, I'll be moving to a regular time frame of 12:05, which is what we're on here today, and hopefully makes it a little bit easier for some folks to come and join us. So with that said, stay safe and stay healthy, everyone, and we will see you all on LinkedIn and possibly on your podcast as well. Take care, everyone. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, everybody.